Thank you so much for joining us. This is AgriTalk, and as always, this is the show where we bring you key players in the industry to bring us information that is meant to help you take your production venture into another level. And today we are talking about poultry farming. And before we went for a short break, we were talking about deep litter system and the battery cage system. So let's discuss about the battery cage system.
Yes.
Yeah, tell us more about that system. Is it a good way, or is it just for the commercial purpose? Because it is more, it is commercially, I think it is more viable.
Yeah, it's more viable because one, it saves on space, because we're looking at a space whereby you'd have reared maybe 1,000 birds in the deep litter system, and with the cage, you know, it's a tire system. You might do twice the capacity. So one, it saves on space. Two, the battery cage system is also, I would say, hygienic in a certain way, because you're able to clear the litter or the stool from the birds and maybe store it or take it somewhere else in the farm. However, in terms of animal welfare, it's not the best practice because the birds are confined in a cage. So these birds are not able to move freely. Basically what they do is they just eat, drink, and lay eggs.
And
so that in itself...
And that is the core purpose for the chicken anyway.
Yes, but again, like I said, you need this bird also
to enjoy life.
To enjoy life. Like I said, you need this bird to enjoy life as well. Yeah. So, and again, that also predisposes the bird to maybe some issues like we call it cage fatigue syndrome. You know, the birds will eventually, you know, get weak, you know, because the limbs are not exercising and all that. So, in the long term, again, the birds will get to, are not treated in a fair manner, I'll put it,
Okay.
It's also quite capital intensive because most of these cages are imported, and for those that are locally fabricated, again, it's also an expensive affair as well. So the initial investment of the same is also quite high. Yes.
So let's talk about vaccination and some of the diseases which are very commonly identified, or rather chicken are very prone to. How can farmers be proactive in avoiding some of these illnesses?
So Kenchik is the only hatchery in Kenya doing pre-vaccinations at the hatchery for the broilers, for the layers, and for the kendro. And like I say, the benefits for this is that vaccination at the hatchery guarantees that every bird has been vaccinated. Number two, it's cheaper and accurate, and that saves time and cost on the farmer. That is if they were to do this at the farm. Number two, we talked of the fact that for the layers and for the kendros, due to the longevity of the bird, there are vaccinations that are done at the farm. And for this particular aspect, there are certain do's and don'ts that the farmer has to look at. One, you have to make sure that the vaccine has been stored properly, and that is right from the manufacturer of the vaccine. So that means you need to purchase your vaccine from a reputable agrovet or a reputable shop, whereby you are sure that that vaccine, or they have followed the cold chain all the way to the point of purchase. And for this particular case, we have the Kenchik one-stop shops, whereby we stock vaccines, we stock poultry equipment as well, and anything related to poultry other than feed. You can be able to get these vaccines there. The other key thing is making sure that the vaccine is administered in the right way. And I don't want to delve into that too much, because tomorrow on Friday, that is one of the topics that will be able to handle.
Okay.
However, I would want to say that vaccination is very key. It's important because it's like an insurance policy for your birds. Yeah, it covers your birds from those infections, which are really endemic. They are within the environment, and it ensures your birds and gives them a chance of being growing and reaching their maximum potential.
And why are birds mostly debeaked? I found some farmers debeaking their birds. Why is it important?
Debeaking is important mostly for commercial layers. And one of the reasons debeaking is done is to avoid feed wastage.
Yeah.
Because with a very sharp beak, the birds tend to waste a lot of feed.
Yeah.
And like we discussed earlier, feed is a huge cost.
Yeah.
Yeah. Number two, we want to avoid vices like cannibalism and vent pecking. Yeah. So these are vices whereby the birds will sort of in quotes eat each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. They'll peck on each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. With that sharp beak, because the way the beak, with that sharpness, the beak in itself is a weapon. Yeah. So we want to prevent such vices like cannibalism. And there's for this particular debeaking or beak treatment, Kenchik has been doing beak treatment for the last 3 years.
Okay.
We call it infrared beak treatment. And it's a very non-invasive method of debeaking the birds. Yeah. The birds do not feel pain. So again, in regard to animal welfare, we want to make sure that the bird is comfortable, doesn't feel pain, and the beak will fall off after 2 to 3 weeks.
Oh.
Traditionally, the beaking was done at the farm.
Yeah.
Normally, it was done twice, at around between 2 and 3 months, and again another right attach at around 4 weeks before the 16 weeks. That is just before the birds start laying.
Okay.
And the way it was being done, most of the time it was very crude. You get some creepers, nail creepers, you get some knives, others would use hot blades, yeah. And with that in itself, it's very traumatizing to the birds.
It is, yeah.
You find after doing that, the birds do not feed for almost a week.
For a very long time.
Yeah, and that in itself means that your birds start losing weight.
Yeah, and the production goes down.
The production, and most of the times the birds are not laying then. But for that layer bird to lay, it has to attain a certain body weight for it to be mature enough, for the ovaries to be mature, and for them to be able to make eggs. So that 1 week whereby the birds are not feeding, it means we are losing on that body weight.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, and the most traumatizing thing is the pain and the suffering that the birds do go through. So Kenchik is the only company again doing infrared beak treatment here in Kenya, and that means you avoid that stress of having to incur the cost of debeaking, because again debeaking was done at a cost.
Yeah,
you avoid the inconvenience of losing on body weight due to that stressing factor that the birds were initially exposed to. Yeah.
What are some of the other causes of stress?
Stress can be brought about by many things. One, the environment. The environment, right now, it's a bit cold.
It is,
Yeah. So if the right measures are not taken, the birds will be stressed. So we are talking of availability of good quality feed, availability of good quality water. If you are brooding your chicks and they are exposed to this cold weather, it means your birds will be stressed again.
Yeah.
And that again has physiological reactions in the body of that bird. They are susceptible to diseases. They are susceptible to other opportunistic infections. Yeah. So at that point, the growth rate will go down. Yeah. Mortalities could spike. and that ultimately will resort to a loss to the farmer. In other scenarios, we are looking at a place maybe, it's quite hot, your house is not adequately ventilated, so your birds will suffer from heat stress. So they'll be panting, they'll lose water, they'll lose electrolytes, and that again has an impact on the production or the performance of that bird.
Okay. Yeah. And for layers, at what point should the production drop for the farmer now to change the stock?
We are looking at if your birds go down between 65 to 70% production, it means the birds are now old.
So a bird is supposed to give you an egg per day, a layer chicken, an egg per day.
Yes.
So when it starts maybe giving you 2 eggs in a week, or how do farmers measure that?
Farmers will measure the production, because assuming your birds are at peak, so you should be expecting anything between 92 to even 96% production.
Okay.
Yeah. The reason we are not able to get 100% is because it takes roughly 25 hours to make an egg.
Yeah, true.
So you cannot have the bird laying every day. So you'll get at least 6 eggs in a week. So as the birds age, the production will also go down.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So there's what we call the percentage. The percentage production is what you look at. There are standards for that. Yeah. Every week, this is what you expect. Yeah. So at some point, when the birds now go below 70% or even up to 65%, most of the time farmers will dispose the birds, because you'll find that they're actually not making money, or they're just breaking even. Yeah, so.
And on that note, briefly, tell us more about the market. Do you give farmers market linkages? Because we've seen cases where, of course, farmers are putting in a lot of effort, but again, when they take their eggs to the market, there is an influx. Or we find that the broilers chicken are even going as low as 300 shillings after all the feeds you've incurred and all the costs you've incurred. So how do you help farmers when it comes to accessing the market?
Over the last 2-3 years, we hardly had an issue with layers or the egg market, and this was due to the fact that we had a lot of cheap imports coming into Kenya, and due to the high cost of feed, the cost of producing an egg in Kenya is quite high. And for our neighbors, or from where the imports coming in, their cost of production is a bit low. So it puts the Kenyan farmer at a disadvantage, because if you're going to buy eggs, you most of the time you'll opt to buy for an egg that is a bit cheaper compared to the one that is expensive. So one of the things as Kenchik we have done, we have lobbied the government to be able to control or put some controls at the border, so that it's a bit difficult for these eggs to come in. And this has been done through the Ministry of Trade, the State Department of Livestock, through poultry farmers associations like Kiambu County Poultry Farmers. They're one of the biggest poultry farmers within Kiambu and Nairobi. And we have lobbied the government to be able to put in more stricter controls. And like you saw, as part of this year's budget reading, there was an introduction of 25% duty for anyone importing eggs. Yeah, and that I think will go a long way in making sure that the Kenyan farmer again regains that advantage and is able to sell their eggs.
So like we had said earlier, that this conversation, rather this interview, is just it's very little information compared to what you've prepared for farmers. And now I wanted to look at your camera and just invite the farmers, tell them where the venue will be, and what they should expect to get out of the training at the end of the 3 days.
So I'll take this opportunity to welcome farmers to the poultry training starting tomorrow. The training will be held at Steamer Club. Steamer Club is along Thika Road Superhighway, opposite NRS headquarters. And we have a lot in store for you. We are here as Kenchi to offer solutions to you farmers. Feel free to come in and query any challenges that you might have encountered in the business. We'll have presentations on poultry housing, vaccinations, disease control, disease management, and we hope that we'll be able to give you the best and offer you solutions to make your businesses more profitable and more sustainable.
Okay. So Dr. Apollo, thank you so much for your time. And just to lay emphasis, that is a program that you shouldn't miss. It is prepared for you specifically by Kenchik in partnership with Farm Kenya. Thank you so much for giving us your time. And as always, God bless you. See you again soon.